Transitions in apps and websites is where motion can really shine. It enhances the communication while bringing a level of delight to all customers in your experience. Hey everyone, I'm Ivan Witteborg with Envato Tuts Plus. I'm the creator of Motion UX, a collection of tutorials breaking down UX motion workflows in real-world production environment. Before we dive in and start creating some transitions in Figma and After Effects, be sure to check out Envato Elements. With a single subscription, you get access to a huge library of assets, including UI kits, photos, videos, animation templates, all which help you jumpstart your next design project. With that, let's dive into Figma and start creating some transitions. So here inside of Figma, we have this very simple money dashboard here saying, hey Trish, money looks great. You got $532. And this is kind of a progress tracker of how maybe your budget has been doing. And we want to have a transition that builds all of this onto the screen, a transition that brings the menu on and off, and then one that takes everything off of the screen to maybe go onto another section of the app. So let's see how we can do that inside of Figma right here. So we'll start working from the final screen all the way back to an empty screen. So if we go ahead and we duplicate this, we can make sure to bring this element off, holding Shift and spacebar to keep it in frame. We can move that off, and then we'll do it again a second time. We'll click on this element, hold Shift and spacebar and pull that off. All right, so let's see how we can link that up with a prototype. So if we go ahead and we select this screen, we're gonna say on a delay, and we'll say this delay can be 800 milliseconds, that's fine. And right now we're just gonna set it to instant transitions. We'll go to the next screen and we'll change that to a delay of 800 milliseconds. We'll transition to that next screen. And we'll say if we then click this menu over here, it's going to actually open up this overlay. So we can change this on click. It will open overlay. This is the overlay right there. And we want it to be top left is where it's going to come out. And we'll also just set that to instant. And on this X, we're gonna have that on click, it's gonna close the overlay. So that will just close that overlay and get us back to this screen here. So let's see what this looks like. All right, so if we go ahead and run through this prototype, you can see the first element pops on, the second card pops on, and then now we have access to this menu. And so right now you can see that things are building, but it's just happening instantly. It's not very clear where to look when things are about to come onto the screen. It kind of just happens, and I feel a little bit disoriented as a user going through this, not really sure where are things coming from, where are they going when we're done. So to enhance these transitions, let's add a little bit of motion. So if we go back into our interaction, we have a delay, but we also have this set to an instant. If we just change this to a smart animate, we can start to see a much better experience overall. So let's go ahead and set this to smart animate. This one we have to actually do a move in, and here is going to just reverse what opened the overlay to begin with. So we'll smart animate off in the opposite direction. We also want to add in here transitioning these elements off as kind of like a transition to maybe a different screen in this application. So what we can do for that is we can just go ahead and duplicate these, and we'll drag these over here. What we'll do now is if we go ahead and click this screen, it will start animating everything off of the screen. And so on click, we're going to navigate to that screen, and we're going to do a smart animate. And when it lands on this screen, we will do a delay, 800 milliseconds, and we'll do this smart animate here. And this we will delete completely. So essentially everything will build onto the screen. We'll be able to interact with the menu. When we click this background, everything will transition off. So let's check this out. So you can see now everything is sliding onto the screen, and with that motion, we can get a better idea of where to look and how to follow these things coming onto screen, and things start unfolding in more of a story-like way, and it's a little bit more delightful. It enhances the communication of where to look, and it's just a clearer way to transition these elements onto screen. And now we also have the menu here that slides in from the left and then goes off to the left. And so that's really nice. Instead of just appearing on the screen really aggressively, we're kind of being eased into that experience. And then if we go ahead and we click the background, we can see things are transitioning off. Awesome. So overall, this looks really nice, right? Like we have these transitions in place, but we can do it even better. So if we actually take a look at this specific interaction, we can see that the Smart Animate has an automatic easing applied. So what is easing? It's helpful to look at how things happen in the real world, right? As things are moving, things accelerate to their top speed, they maintain their top speed, and then they decelerate. And when we don't have easing in these digital environments, things follow a linear speed. And so they start at their top speed and they maintain that speed all the way to the end, and then they stop immediately. Nothing in nature actually does that. Nothing instantaneously is moving at their top speed and then stopping immediately. Everything has some sort of acceleration and deceleration as we look at things move along the world. So easing is our way of mimicking that natural feel in these digital environments. And so if you look here, this is an ease in curve. And an easy way to think about this is the flatter it is, the slower it is. And the steeper it is, the faster it is. And so this right here is very, very slow to start, and then it's getting faster at the end. And so it's easing in to the speed, and then it speeds up at the end. Over here, you can see this is the opposite. It starts off very fast and it slows down there at the end. And so that is an ease out. And so you can see there are a lot of different types of easings that you see. These are kind of like default values that you would find in like a CSS for easing. And this can be a little bit overwhelming. And so there's an easier way for you to think about easing. And so typically with UX motion design, there are three main types of easing. There's an ease out, ease in and out, and an ease in. Those names are not necessarily clear as to when are you supposed to use one versus the other. And so the way that I think about these easings is that there is an enter easing, there's a standard easing, and there's an exit easing. You would use an enter easing when you're bringing something off of screen onto screen. It would start off very, very fast and then kind of rest into its final position. The exit easing would be the opposite of that, where something is already on screen and you're removing it. And so it starts very slow and then speeds up at the very last moment. And a standard easing is something when something is already on screen and it's trying to move around and then stay on screen at the end. The acceleration and deceleration of these easing curves allow us to give our customers a little bit of anticipation to understand what is about to happen, why is it about to happen, and where is it about to happen. So if we're taking this enter easing, standard easing, and exit easing to our prototype, we can make it feel a little bit more natural. So if we go ahead and select this first transition here, we can see here that by default, Smart Animate chooses ease out as the default easing for all of its Smart Animate transitions if you don't otherwise change it. And ease out, it works okay. Everything's going to look pretty good, but there are certain points where it will start to look a little bit odd when things are moving around the screen. So absolutely, you can start using these. You can use the ease in for whenever you're taking something off of the screen. You can use ease out for whenever you're bringing something onto the screen, and the ease in and out as you're moving things around the screen. But for me, and if you're working in a design system or something like that, you may have custom easings or default easings for your experience or your app or your company. And so using custom easing allows us to get closer to that. So in this specific transition, we're bringing these little cards off the screen to on the screen. So we want that enter easing. And enter easing typically starts off very fast and ends very slow. And so this is a very aggressive ease that you see here. It's starting off as fast as it possibly can. It's straight up, and it's slowing down the easiest as it can. So it's completely flat. And we'll go ahead and we'll apply that right here, where we will do a custom ease right here again. And from here to here, we will do a Smart Animate. And then bringing on the menu, we will also have an enter easing as well. The one downside to using overlays in Figma is that it just uses the same easing that you applied to open the overlay will be applied to when you close the overlay. So ideally, I would apply an enter easing to open it and an exit easing to close it, but you're not able to do that here inside of Figma. And one thing we want to add here is we want to add some standard easing, and we want these little bars to kind of move and show us like a progression of how things are happening here. So what we can do is we can use a Smart Animate over to this next screen. And what we want to happen here, if we go back to the design panel, we just want these things to kind of grow a little bit, to give this little card a little bit more life and transition us into what our budget has been like for the past several months. If we go back to the prototyping tab, we can change that to use what we call the standard easing. So it's very slow to start, fast in the middle, and slow to end. And we can change that to be whatever we feel is most appropriate for our specific brand or feeling of our app. And for here, it's a slightly aggressive S-curve, ease in, ease out, standard easing that we have here. So that will happen when we click on this card specifically. This will happen. So now we have this standard easing that shows this graph kind of growing as we land on the dashboard. After this, we want to remove all of these cards from the screen. So we want to use our exit easing. So if we check out this interaction here, we'll go down and change this from ease out to a custom Bezier. And we'll do an ease out where it starts off very slow and it ends very quickly. And you can see a little preview of what that looks like here. And we'll do that again over here. Little ease and quick out. So that's our exit easing. And if you want to keep these really consistent in Figma, you can actually just copy this Bezier value here and paste it across. It doesn't yet allow you to save custom Bezier values in your list here. So let's take a look at how that feels. So you can see these feel a lot more responsive, a little bit more snap, because it's a really aggressive fast and then slow at the end. Now let's open up the menu. You see that feels pretty nice as well, but you can see that the enter easing feels good because it starts off fast, it ends slow. But when you actually close it, it's using that same easing. And so it's very, very quick in the beginning, but then slow at the end. So we start seeing the sliver of the menu right there at the end. And it just feels a little bit off there. It would be much better if we could do a custom easing for the closing of the overlay, but Figma doesn't allow us to do that here. So we see if we click on this card, it uses that standard easing. So it's a slow, fast, then slow at the end. And that makes it feel a little bit more natural. It has this acceleration and then deceleration at the end. And if we want to remove everything off the screen, we click this and we can see that everything starts slow and ends really, really fast. So it gives us a little bit of focus, anticipation of what's about to happen. And that really helps with the overall communication of what to look at. So what we have here in Figma is a really fantastic transition of building this app screen on, bringing the menu on and off, and then taking everything away. But there are a few parts of this that really could be refined further that were kind of limited here in Figma. Specifically, when we look at this part here where the first one comes on, there's a long delay, and the second one comes on. It would be much better if they slightly overlapped. And so one came on as the second one was starting to come on. And that would give us a little bit more of a follow through that feels like one big piece of motion rather than two separate pieces. So we don't have that control here in Figma, but we do have that over in After Effects. And so a typical UX motion workflow for something like this is as we're getting down to the delivery stages and handing it off to developers, we really want to get those transitions right. And so you could resort to just keeping everything here in Figma, making this Figma prototype, and adding some text to help the developers understand how this should be implemented. But I find it's always much more helpful to just show that ideal version and work your way from there. And so in order to get to that ideal version, we need to jump into After Effects. We need to animate things a little bit more accurately. And to get our designs into After Effects, I'm using a plugin called AEUX. This was created by Adam Plouffe, and it's a fantastic, easy way to get all of your stuff from Figma into After Effects and start animating there. So with one click, you can see all of my Figma stuff is in here inside of After Effects, which is fantastic. You can see that some stuff doesn't look 100% correct, so we can go in here and fix some of these things. So some things didn't import correctly, like the circle I had to redo with the stroke, and the text didn't really import correctly, but we've got all that fixed now. So let's dive in and see how we can animate these different elements onto the screen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure we understand where our layers are. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna want to animate on these two objects. And so we'll shift to select both of them, hit P for position, and lay down keyframes. Go forward a few frames doing Command Shift and right arrow key. And we'll lay down another keyframe, go back to the beginning, and we'll just drag both of these off of the screen. And just like that, we have a little bit of animation happening here. By default, you can see that it looks a little bit odd. And that's because by default, it's using linear easing, which essentially means it's starting at the full speed and it's keep maintaining that speed all the way to the end, and then it abruptly stops. And that speed is determined by the distance between these keyframes. And so if I do it a shorter time, it's going to be a little bit faster. So what we want to do is we want to apply easing to these keyframes. And an easy way to do that is you can select both and you can tap F9, and that will turn these into easy ease keyframes. And essentially what this mimics is an ease in and ease out. Let's hide this one so we can see. So it will start slow and it will end slow and be fast right in the middle. But that's not what we want here, right? We want our enter easing. And so a way that we can do that is if we actually select this graph editor, you can see that on this X position, we have that ease in, ease out curve. But we can't directly manipulate that curve here. So the way that we're gonna have to do that is if we right click this position and we separate the dimensions, and we'll do that for both of our cards. And now if we select the X position, we now have access to these Bezier handles. And this allows us to manipulate the easing to be whatever we want. In order to get a better representation of that, I'm actually gonna select this, which will fit the entire graph to my view. Now I have the ability to manipulate this entire easing just the same way I did inside of Figma. So you can see it feels a little bit aggressive, so I can move these a little bit like this, and that feels really, really nice. And so I can then go into the Hey Trish card and I can do the exact same thing. So let's see what this looks like. All right, and you can see they're coming in at slightly different rates, and that's because I'm just doing this easing by hand. And so what's helpful here is to have some plugins that help you manage your easings a little bit better. And you can see I have this plugin here called Flow. And in here, I already have my standard enter and exit easings. And so what's helpful with this is that I don't even need to separate my position dimensions. I can just go ahead and select these keyframes and apply this enter easing to it. And so now I have the exact same easing applied to both keyframes, so they're coming in at the same rate. And I also didn't need to separate the dimensions of this property. And so now if I want to move this around anywhere, it will maintain that easing. So plugins like Flow are really helpful as just a workflow enhancement when dealing with easings in UX motion design. What we want to do now is we want to offset the motion. So we want the Trish card to come on first, and quickly behind it, we want that bar graph to come on. And so let's go ahead, we can rename this bar graph, and we can just take this entire layer and just offset it slightly. And we can kind of scrub through to see what that timing would look like. And we want it to be a little bit closer than that. So let's maybe do this. And so now this feels like it's part of one continuous piece of motion. There's a little bit more of a follow through, but we see that slight offset. And so our eye is still being directed down the page to see what information is coming on. And you can exaggerate that a little bit more, you can shorten it, you can make that motion be a little bit longer, more drawn out, whatever suits the specific moment in your experience. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that this bar graph is moving as well. So let's go ahead and come into this bar graph and go into the bar graph and into the bar graph and see where we can actually find the specific layer. What we want to do now is we want to lay down some scale keyframes for these. So we'll go forward in time, maybe 1, 2, 3, 40 frames. We'll go forward in time 40 frames because we want it to take a little bit longer. And we'll just go in here and we'll make sure that we unlink the scale properties, because if we have it linked, it will scale uniformly, but we don't want that. We want it to scale just up and down. If we grab this anchor point tool, we can actually grab our anchor points and move them right down to the bottom. So if we drag that to all of them, we can move all those anchor points right there to the bottom of the layer. So now if we go to this end, we can go ahead and we can just start scaling some of these up. And you'll notice immediately something looks very, very odd. The reason for this is that it's scaling the entire layer, including that round corner. So for this specific situation, we're just gonna go ahead and just disable all the roundness for all of these layers so that we don't get that funky look. So now we have this scale happening right here, and we're going to go ahead and apply that easing we mentioned earlier, which is the standard easing. It's already going to be on screen, and we want it to ease in, be fast, and then ease out. And so now if we go ahead and preview that, we can see what that looks like. We also want to offset the animation, similarly like we did with the two cards that were coming in the beginning. We want to offset them here. And so if we just go ahead and we select all these keyframes, we can just move them slightly. We can move this a little bit more, and we can move this last one. And so now instead of them all animating at the same time, we kind of have this cascading effect. And so we can really see where our eye is supposed to move. Again, this is not something that we can do inside of Figma, and that's why After Effects allows us to be a little bit more accurate in the way that we want to represent our animation. So if we jump all the way back to this master composition, we can see what is happening here. And so these two cards animate in, and then we have our little bar graph animating up. So let's take a look at that. So now we see here, this feels a lot more accurate and a lot more crisp than what we had in Figma. With After Effects, we're able to get that extra level of granularity and detail in our animations. And so sometimes this is really helpful during that handoff phase or really concepting phase to see, do these elements really fit together? Does the animation really work? You can get pretty close in Figma, and I always recommend that as the first route for user testing and all of those sorts of things to get your ideas out very, very quickly. But then going to After Effects when you really need to refine that motion down and refine those ideas a little bit further. And that's it, everybody. Transitions in your apps and websites really enhance the overall experience, and really focusing on which easing applies to which specific transition is really helpful in making all of that motion feel as natural as possible and giving your customers as much delight as possible. Again, I'm Ivan Witteborg with Envato Tuts Plus. Subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time.